Well, good morning, folks. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, coming to you live from the podcast layer. You know, that little treat, that song was created and sung by my very own producer, Phil Ville. When he sings country, his voice sounds a little different, but I think he did a pretty good job. And, you know, I hope he doesn't hit it big in the country music scene because I love having him here helping me out with this show.
That was Phil?
That was Phil.
Wow. That's awesome.
Today I am joined by two patriots. One is definitely a friend, and I hope a soon-to-be friend, Patty Casio. She is the regional rep, so here in the Central Valley for John Birch Society. And I'm also joined by Bill Jasper, and he is a representative for the John Birch Society and does a lot of the writing for them. So I think it's going to be a good conversation. I really like the John Birch Society. I joined fairly early COVID. Jeff Mora, he's a local patriot down in Hanford, came by a group and got us all signed up. And I've been a member since. I think the special thing about the John Birch Society is the wealth of information they have on their websites. They're technically nonpartisan, though I would say I have never met a John Birch person that wasn't an originalist, wasn't a conservative, because they're trying to preserve the things that are great about this country. So, welcome. I don't know which one of you wants to speak first.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So there's a whole bunch going on. I'm going to jump into something that's going on in the news and something that just happened. And I believe that Venezuela and Iran are very connected. Why do you think they're connected? Or how are they connected?
Well, they're connected in many ways. Going back, both of them are problem areas. Why are they problem areas? Well, the John Birch Society, and I've been with the society for 50 years now. I'm the president, national president of the society. I'm also the senior editor for the New American magazine, which is our monthly, now it's monthly, it used to be bi-weekly magazine, print magazine. We also have a very robust presence online with the New American and the John Birch Society on our websites, thenewamerican.com and jbs.org. So the New American has been around since 1985, and before that, its predecessors were a monthly journal, American Opinion, and a weekly news magazine, The Review of the News, and we combined those in 1985 into the New American. And I bring that up because we have a history. The John Birch Society has been around since 1958, and we have been exposing corruption in what today is called the deep state. Back at that time, the organized forces of globalism were usually referred to as one-worlders, internationalism,
like the Bushes.
Globalism. Yes, the Bushes.
The insiders.
Well, right, because it's not just a Democrat-Republican issue.
No. It was. We pointed that out very clearly, that it was a nonpartisan, in fact, bipartisan treason going on in our government for pretty much the last century. And the organization that we primarily focused on, because it was and is the most prominent of the so-called think tanks, and it has usurped control of much of our government, is the Council on Foreign Relations, otherwise known as the CFR. If you go at cfr.org, that is their official website. And it is one of those conspiracies that operates semi in the open. So there's a bunch of the Council on Foreign Relations operations and things which they present to the public. But then there are other parts of it which are secret, and they refer to those as the Chatham House rules. And this is all very important because when you look at how the United States has developed over the last century, we see that the Council on Foreign Relations has, through Democrat and Republican administrations, taken control of virtually all the different cabinet positions. Many times, both the president and the vice president are members of the Council on Foreign Relations. It's a relatively small organization. It's an elite organization, which is promoting and has been the leading proponent of world government. And
Well,
so
the big problem with that is that means their loyalties are divided.
absolutely
They're not America first.
Absolutely, and that's why President Trump, in adopting the term American First, he or someone who proposed that to him knew what they were talking about, because we have one of the prominent CFR members who defected from the Council on Foreign Relations, Admiral Chester Ward. He was a CFR member for 16 years during the 60s. And finally, he realized, after going to enough of their meetings and whatnot, that underneath their public pronouncements and personas, that there was a very ulterior anti-American zeitgeist or
Gesalt.
that permeated. He said there is nothing quite so repellent to members of the Council on Foreign Relations as America First, because
or individual freedom.
Right. They're constantly promoting centralization, concentration of power first at the national level, and then transferring it to the global level. So they want a world government.
So they're authoritarians.
Absolutely.
It could be various flavors that are combined together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so during the New Deal, for instance, of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he was very friendly toward fascism in Italy and in Germany. In fact, at his first cabinet meeting, this is, of course, pre-World War II, he had Francis Perkins, who was his labor secretary, bring in a copy of Gentili's, who was Mussolini's theorist, a copy of his book for all of the cabinet. And so all of the liberals of that day, of the Council on Foreign Relations, they were all in favor of fascism at that time, because this was a form of collectivism, of socialism.
But that doesn't make sense. How can Trump be a fascist when he's cutting regulations?
That's right.
And fascism actually wants to use government and the media to control people. That doesn't add up.
Fascism and communism are blood brothers. They're cousins, if you will. And so there's very little difference between them. And so the globalists, what we've pointed out is those people who are globalists, the Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg, etc., World Economic Forum, they believe in concentration and centralization of power. And that is why you see from the very beginning of, one of the biggest issues before us today is China, and how do we deal with communist China and its economic and political and military rise. And it all goes back to when the globalists betrayed China into the hands of the communists. And so they've been working hand in hand, and we see it very clearly at the World Economic Forum. Here's all the billionaires of big tech, big banking, big corporations, big pharma. And at Davos, they all fly in on their Learjets and their Gulfstreams, and then join hands with Xi Jinping and all these other communist officials from the CCP, from China, who populate all of these World Economic Forum task forces.
Right, and they're not necessarily moral. They're about just acquiring more power.
Absolutely.
Because they're largely responsible for places like Iran being able to be the corrupt. Now things have shifted a bit. We'll see where that shift takes us. Or same thing with Venezuela. They were their way to hide drug money. They were the way to hide oil. Russia was able to sneak over oil in Venezuelan tankers. Iran was sending most of their oil to China when there was an embargo, and all of the Western world was not buying Iranian oil.
Yeah, so both Venezuela and Iran were formerly non-communist countries. And in fact, under the Shah of Iran, I had joined the staff of the John Birch Society in Southern California in 1976. And beginning right around that time through 78, then 79, that's when the Shah of Iran was overthrown.
I remember it, but I was paying attention to politics, but I was only 10 and 11, depending on which year we're talking about.
Yeah, so I was in my 20s then. So I was working at that time undercover in the Communist Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party, the Socialist Workers' Party, the Trotskyite Labor Party, and also organizations that were support groups for the PLO and the Iranian student organization, which became the Iranian Republican Guard.
But you'd think all of those, they're such different interests. They have one thing that they're united on. They'll fight it out if they ever get power.
Absolutely. That
but
always
they want
happens.
power.
Yes.
And I believe their biggest threat is the United States and the idea of individual liberty and liberty being defined by God.
Absolutely. The United States represent the big speed bump on the road to the New World Order. How do we get rid of the United States? The United States was too prosperous, too strong, too independent, and populated by people who were not ready to be regimented. And because we'd come from all parts of the world seeking freedom and had tasted it here. And so they had to destroy America's patriotism, America's productivity. And so we began seeing, particularly in the 1970s, after China had been completely turned into a communist slave state, the transfer of all of our technology over to China and all of our manufacturing base. There's never been anything like it in the history of the world.
Well, it hollowed out our middle class.
Absolutely.
Which I believe the middle class is where all of our freedoms are defended. The rich will be fine always. The poor are largely getting by.
Absolutely. And our independence, because all of those things, when I was growing up and when you were growing up, virtually everything that you look around here was produced here in the United States, from furniture to carpeting to paint to anything that you'd use to build your home, but also the electronics and all of the advanced components that are used in technology now. And so in the space of the last 40 years, all of that was stripped away, and it was done intentionally. It was done with the purpose of destroying America's independence and productivity and prosperity and liberty.
Now everything's made in China.
Yep. And this is a multi-pronged, multi-headed beast that is trying to take liberty.
Absolutely. And it's economic, it's financial, it's political, social, attacking the family.
Using pandemics.
Yes. That was one of the big things that was a wake-up call for millions, not only of Americans, but hundreds of millions of people around the world. They go, wait a second, something is really wrong here. And, the John Birch Society, a central program of ours, and probably many of your viewers have seen our big campaign posters and billboards over the years and park benches going back to the 60s, get us out of the United Nations. The United Nations has been the central planned world government structure that this new world order would merge all national governments into. And we're very grateful that now, all these many decades later, there is an awakening to that danger, and the COVID plandemic really opened a lot of people's eyes, because an agency of the United Nations, the World Health Organization, which nobody had heard of, hardly. I mean, it was never on the radar screen for most Americans until 2019, 2020, and all of a sudden this UN organization declares that the whole world has to be locked down, and the medical authorities, health authorities in every country follow suit. And who are these World Health Organization people that have this authority? So we've exposed that very comprehensively in the New American Magazine and in my books on the UN.
So
For decades, the John Birch Society has been exposing the United Nations and their plan, and now more people see that.
So, since you're the regional rep, Patty, where would they find that information? We'll come back to this conversation, but I want to make sure we get that in. Where do they find out about John Birch?
Well, you can go to jbs.org to find out about the John Birch Society. There's a video on the initial homepage, Boldly Defending Freedom, and it is testimonial speeches from a variety of well-known journalists, podcasters, all independent from the mainstream media. There's a description of the history of the John Birch Society there, and then more, current information about current things going on in the world is also on the newamerican.com website, and we're also on social media.
And a lot of that information is free if you didn't want to join. I would still love for people to read the articles in the New American. We need to be an informed society in order to protect our freedom.
And the John Birch Society has a wealth of information, tools, and resources to educate America.
There's some really great ones, which we will get back to.
Okay.
But we're in the middle of this globalist. I was just like, I can't let you not have a plug, and we'll have one at the end.
Yeah, right. I appreciate that.
So for me, since this is this multi-pronged, multi-headed kind of loose affiliation, it's not like it's just necessarily one group of just a few rich people. They have allied with authoritarians, and I think John Birch did something. This blew my mind, because growing up, I always saw the political spectrum as like a circle or a horseshoe. And John Birch put it in a line. And the second I saw that, I went, does it really matter? Either you want no government at one end or authoritarianism at the other. Do I care whether they're on the right or the left if they want authoritarianism? It's irrelevant to me. I want individual freedom. And as soon as I saw that, I went, wow, somebody just thought of this in a way that I'd never been exposed to. And I
Overview of America?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, John McManus, Jack McManus was a very close friend of mine. He was the president of the John Birch Society before I was, and he was our spokesman for so many years. His overview of America presentation has awakened millions of Americans to basic truths and core understanding of not only the Constitution, but what it is that makes America so special. And that one political spectrum that you just mentioned is one of the key things that awakened me too, because I had just graduated from the university in 1975, and I thought I knew a lot. And I read some of the books of the John Birch Society, Neanderthal Conspiracy and Bastiat's The Law, and Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, and Ludwig von Mises, and a number of those things. But then I watched, at that time it wasn't a video, it was a film strip overview of America with his narration on it. And, we are traditionally taught that, okay, the political spectrum is right-wing over here and left-wing over here. The right wing is fascist and the left wing is communist. And so they're opposites. And no, they're not opposites. They're very similar. They're almost indistinguishable. So you have, as you pointed out, as Jack McManus explained, on a spectrum that makes sense, you begin with zero government, which is anarchy, and then you move towards more government, tribal, etc. You get to limited constitutional government, is really close to the center or a little right of center. And then you keep going, you get more socialist governments, and you get fascist and communist over here on the left. And
But you'd even get dictators over there on that side.
Yeah.
Anybody that doesn't believe in individual freedom would fit on that side. And I think that groups people in a way that is more closely related to reality.
Sure.
In that presentation, it explains the difference between a constitutional republic and a democracy, where we are not a democracy like others try to say, a threat to our democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
Amen.
Big difference.
Amen.
Yeah. And the founders explained that. That's not something that the John Birch Society came up with. The founding fathers, Madison, Jefferson, Washington, Hamilton, they all said democracy was a dangerous form of government. And why? Because it is really, true democracy is mobocracy. Mm-hmm. There is no protection for the minority. There is no protection for anyone's rights. A constitutional republic is totally different from democracy, and yet even many conservative influencers will refer to us as a democracy. We have to protect our democracy. This is a threat to our democracy.
Which is wrong.
Yes.
It is.
But I think just as importantly, all of our rights are inalienable rights.
Right.
Right.
So we have this foundation. Who can take your rights away if God gave them to you?
Yeah. So it's even wrong for a lot of people who are constitutionalists, who proclaim themselves constitutionalists, to say that these are constitutional rights. They really aren't. They're God-given individual rights. The Constitution doesn't give us the rights. It is there to protect them, to enunciate that, okay, these are our rights.
The first part is to limit government, and the other is to try to enumerate a bunch of our rights in the Bill of Rights.
Yep. But then, very importantly, the Ninth Amendment of the Bill of Rights says those rights not. Well, I'm forgotten now. Anyway,
basically, rights that they didn't. If they didn't write it down, it falls to the states or the people.
Right, and so it's not. We can't enumerate all of our rights. If we start doing that, as Madison said, then we'll leave out something, and some dictator-minded person will say, well, it's not in the Constitution, so you don't have that right. No, those rights not enumerated in the Constitution are given to remain to the people and to the states. So.
I want to tie in economics a little bit, because that is the future of money is in this. We don't have a ton of time for this, but maybe 5 minutes on the future of money, because that totally ties into what's happening with globalists and who wins.
Very clearly. So in any communist state, the government controls all of your economic decisions and all of your economic opportunities and all of your economic rights, if you have any. And they can control you by making it impossible for you to work or to travel or to buy food or to advance in education or anything, by controlling you economically. And we see this, the pinnacle of this right now in communist China with their social credit system, where everybody has seen the videos of in China where they have the biometric face, the cameras, they whole crowds of people, and you're being watched all the time. They have millions of cameras around, and if you frown when you're supposed to smile, if you talk to someone you're not supposed to talk to, if you say something that is viewed as criticism of the government, you can have all of your economic rights taken away.
So no free speech.
No free speech.
And
absolutely.
You'd probably be even afraid to think it, because if your face looked wrong, you could still lose points. If you don't have free thought, you also can't have free speech.
Right.
Yeah, they'll freeze your assets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you could have your life savings in a bank account, and all of a sudden, nope, nothing works. You can't.
That's why gold costs more in China, and they buy it by the gram.
Yep.
In case people didn't know that, and you can look that up very easily.
So why is that of concern to us? Because we are rapidly moving toward a digital economy, a digitized structure of banking, and that's what the central bank digital currencies are all about. We saw a shadow of that during the Canadian trucker strikes, when people tried to give money to support the Canadian truckers, and all of a sudden they were debanked. And we saw what happened when the President of the United States, Donald Trump, was debanked by Citibank. Here's one of the wealthiest men and most powerful men in the world, and he gets debanked. Well, that should send chills down everyone's spine, because we are moving in that direction. And in this particular issue of the magazine, one of the articles is by Catherine Austin Fitz. She's a wonderful economist who's a member of the Birch Society, very famous, and she has written extensively about this, the war on cash. And she points out, whenever possible, use cash.
Well, it's actually private.
Yeah, it's private because, right, you're not going to be able to be tracked then. You can't be. But if
nobody's business.
If we allow ourselves to be decashed so that we are totally dependent on digital currency, then we're already in what she calls the digital control grid.
And if it's digital currency issued by the state or by your particular country, it's a setup for China.
Absolutely.
If it's private digital currency, at least we have some options.
Right, and if it's elective, if you're buying Bitcoin or some Ethereum or some other kind of thing, that's your choice. I would say it's unwise to put everything in that. It makes more sense to have cash on hand, to invest in gold, silver, or other precious metals.
And by the way, they're considered now currency.
Yeah. Yes.
Trump changed that.
Yeah. So, we have been very supportive of President Trump on many issues, and it's very clear that he has gone against the globalists and the communists and many of these. He's the first one to really draw the lines showing the proper adversarial relationship with China, and so all of the globalists were attacking him, all the media was attacking him. Even many of the Republican governors and senators have been totally in bed with China. In
So he's interrupting the money stream.
In 2010, there was a National Governors Association conference in Salt Lake City, and this was the first one where they invited all the governors of China to come over here. And it was all Republican governors that were in charge of it, and they were wanting all this Chinese investment in their states. Well, we did a cover story criticizing that. I wrote the cover story, and I went to Salt Lake City to cover it. I was persona non grata. They wouldn't give me accreditation to attend this. And yet they had over 100 Chinese communist journalists, propagandists that were trained by the CCP, who they allowed in. But they wouldn't allow me in because all these Republican and Democrat governors were trying to cozy up to China. It's a little bit different now. People are realizing that, hey, this may not be such a good idea.
Definitely not.
It's treasonous.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're starting to wrap down, and I want to make sure that we have time to talk about how to find John Birch one more time. And then I want to talk about a couple things that I think are really helpful, really hopeful, that have to do with John Birch. One is that Freedom Index score. Mm-hmm. And the other is the Freedom Academy, or Freedom Project Academy. So I don't know who wants to go first, but I think both of those matter.
Absolutely. I can talk about the Freedom Index scorecards, and then if Bill will talk more about the Freedom Project Academy, which can provide us hope for the future. But what I love about this tool that the John Birch Society puts together, and it's in the in our New American magazine, either twice a year or quarterly. But what it breaks down is a legislative scorecard for all legislators nationwide. It's all the state senators, assemblymen, and congressmen on how they vote based on the Constitution.
So every state across the country.
Every state across the country. So you can go to thefreedomindex.org to pull up the website, and we also have an app that you can download to your phone. And you can pull up the name of your congressman at the top section. It will show their picture. You click on that, it'll show a sample of the bills that they've been voting on, and an explanation of those bills and how they voted and whether their votes were constitutional or not. And then we score them on how they voted and did they uphold the Constitution for which they took an oath to do so. And we score them from 0 to 100. And usually, if they score low, there's a D next to their name, and the higher scores have an R next to their name. This information is fact-based. It's nonpartisan. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican.
Or an independent.
We score everyone on basically where their vote's constitutional or not. Was it good for the country, or can we afford it? Does it uphold our Constitution? And everyone can pull up their state representative as well. You can scroll down, and the U.S. States are broken down. So you click on your state, and you can pull up your senators and your assemblymen and assembly members, and you can click on their name, their picture, and then the same thing, a sample of the bills they voted on and how they voted, whether their votes were constitutional or not. This can be also used during campaigns to educate the voters. If a legislator, an incumbent, is not voting to uphold the Constitution, then they need to vote for somebody who will. And we need better candidates who will uphold the Constitution. And we also have constitutional classes on our website that are free. And we also have a webinar coming up. So if I can plug that. Briefly,
so
Blueprint for Liberty. Okay, Blueprint for Liberty is our updated constitutional series. It's there's a webinar workshop that starts March 16th. It's a 7-week series, and it's Mondays at 5. And California, it's at 5 p.m. But it's nationwide. If you register, if you go on our website and on the John Birch Society website, you can find education in the Constitution, the Blueprint for Liberty, and also our webinars. And if you register for the webinars and you're not able to join live, we'll send you the recording the next day to your email, and you can watch it at your convenience. So, again, those are free.
Well, those are great resources. Can you tell us a little bit about the Freedom Project Academy?
Yeah, so the Freedom Project Academy is an incredible thing that we started 15 years ago. We've just had our 15th anniversary. And Dr. Duke Pesta, who is a tenured professor at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, is the executive director of it. This is a way in which parents can educate their children from kindergarten through high school in an accredited class. That means it's all accredited program that is accepted by colleges and universities all across the country. And it's done remote, so there are 3 different options that people have with Freedom Project Academy. It's a fully classical education with foreign languages, mathematics, reading, writing, arithmetic, all of those things. And they have an actual live classroom for each of those classes with a professor, a teacher who teaches there. And the students are online getting live classes. And so that's one way that they can do it. And then they have to actually carry out assignments and be tested, etc. Another way they can do it is if they just want to pick and choose, like a lot of homeschool parents want to, or even if they're people who are parents who are sending their kids to a regular school, if they want supplemental classes, they can do a la carte, take a class here or there.
So this is almost like a homeschooling type of thing.
It is, yes, it is homeschooling, and it can be done. It is done in some places where a church or an organization has a brick and mortar thing where they do it and have the kids come there with their laptops and do it. Or the vast majority of them are just done at home. And so this has opened up a tremendous thing. We just received an award. It's for the top homeschooling program. Dr. Pesta just told me about that. It's quite exciting. We've had quite a number of awards because this is still the only, it was the first of its kind and still the only live accredited K through 12 homeschooling program.
Can I hold up the pamphlet, the booklet? Okay. So that's the new booklet. It has great information to explain the Freedom Project Academy. The website is fpeusa.org. Thank you. So the FPE stands for the Freedom Project Education, but the school is Freedom Project Academy, and there's no government funding. There's no government
Regulation
woke
or control.
curriculum or instructions on the woke agenda.
Well, both of those give me hope. I'm also hopeful just because culture is shifting, because God is good, that I hope we're worthy, that we're often not, because we've created something special here. And I think that John Birch, meaning the way our forefathers looked at freedom, they changed the world. And so that makes me hopeful. I thank you both for joining me today.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Bill.
Thank
Welcome,
you, Eric.
Patty.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, coming to you from the podcast layer.